Hello and welcome to all of my wonderful viewers. You see what I did there? You guys have certainly grown on me in the past few weeks, constantly giving me that undenying support week in and week out, and it really has meant a lot because usually I'm constantly bringing back wins to my channel, but as of late I've been definitely showing a bunch of losses on my channel, which has been kind of unusual for me, but you guys have stayed by my side and supported me through it no matter what. And like I said last week, you know, I did have some thinking to do. Maybe I shouldn't have been calling you guys worthless and pointless viewers. Maybe I should have been playing for not just myself, but for you guys as well, like I always used to. And maybe that was one of the keys to me doing well. So it definitely gave me a lot to think about. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for all of that support because, you know, it's been a rough season for us so far, and once I kind of talk about what's going on for this week, you may see how it could be potentially get even more rough. As we are here for episode 7 of Matty Omega's National Pokeball League Season 7 Takeover, and we are facing none other than the king himself, Gypsy King. Now, I mentioned in my last video that I was making some transactions, but unfortunately, these transactions didn't process until after the week where I was supposed to play Gypsy. So I can't use these transactions for my game against him. So you're going to be able to see them on the screen here. We traded Hoopa Unbound to Verd for Starmie. And that is going to be our Zmon because we didn't have another transaction available to change it to something like Scolipede. But Starmie is a fine Zmon. I definitely think overall it is a more useful Pokemon than Hoopa Unbound just because of Hoopa's speed and complete lack of any defensive utility. Starmie really helps our speed tiers and gives us one of the best spinners in the game while also being a lot more of an offensive threat with the potential use of Z moves because Starmie has incredible coverage, and the biggest difference over Hoopa is just that speed because Hoopa is so hard to wall with the Z moves, but Starmie can outspeed a lot of Pokemon and hit them hard with the Z moves, whereas Hoopa usually can't even get them off before it gets knocked out. So I think that's a very good addition to our team, especially when you see our next pickup, which is Mega Charizard X. Now, I had Zard X for the first time last season of the National Pokeball League, and it was my first time using it. I didn't have, like, my team was really good, but I didn't have a great draft supporting it. Like, I didn't have I had a regular Blastoise as a potential rapid spinner, but my best hazard removal was Defog on Decidueye, and regular Blastoise is not a very good spinner. It loses a lot of momentum against a lot of teams, and it's also spin blocked somewhat easily, whereas things like Mega Blastoise and Starmie are not, and that's why I like them as spinners in the format. But we've obviously had to drop Mega Blastoise to get Charizard, so I was very happy to be able to get Starmie because Starmie can definitely fill the void that Blastoise left. And now we have a really good spinner for Charizard X, which makes it a lot more threatening because good hazard removal plus Charizard X is quite scary considering how bulky it can be and how much it really appreciates the extra HP of not having to come in and take hazard damage all the time. So Charizard X last season, I definitely thought it was a little bit overrated when I had it on my team because there were just so many teams of my opponents that had multiple checks for it and also had ways of getting hazards up somewhat easily, which would pressure Charizard a lot. But I think now it's a little bit harder to get up hazards as safely against my team or keep them up as safely against my team, which would allow Charizard to do a lot more. And also, I've learned over time on how to use Charizard a little bit better. So I definitely think it's a top 5 Mega in the format, and it will be, in my opinion, a very good addition to the team as Charizard X could just do some amazing things and really support the team pretty well considering the way the team is built and the things that Charizard could do. So then next we dropped Druddigon. I know I said last week that I'm giving Druddigon another chance. I never really got to use it that much in NPL Season 5, so I drafted it again and then I dropped it already to pick up Xurkitree because now we have the Scolipede combo, ridiculously threatening, and Xurkitree is just a pretty good Pokemon. I don't think it's worth 14 points on its own. Like on a Scolipede team, yeah, then it is really valuable, but on its own, I don't necessarily think it's worth 14 points, but it is a really solid Pokemon, much better than something like Druddigon generally, and the fact that I do have a Scolipede really can just make it all the more threatening. So our team just went from being pretty crappy to not great because we still have tons of holes, but just very threatening, because now we have Scolipede, Z-Starmie, Crocodile, Mega Charizard X, and Xurkitree. Just 5 crazy threats together, and then we have some other pretty decent Pokemon like Bronzong, Meloetta, Cofagrigus, and then even something like Crabominable that can take advantage of Trick Room, as I've showed to a decent extent this season, which could be kind of tough to prepare for when you also have to prepare for things like Zardex, Crocodile, and Scolipede all at once. So definitely liking my chances in my next few weeks more than I am had I not made these transactions. But like I said, I can't use these against Gypsy King. Right now, you would have to see it as me still having Hoopa Unbound, Mega Blastoise, and Druddigon over here. Now, this is Gypsy's team right here. I didn't show his name because I wanted to make sure that you could see both of our teams in the shot. Now, Gypsy's team is fantastic. It is, yeah, I would almost say far and away the best team in the league this season. Not necessarily far and away. I mean, it just depends on your preferences, but I think overall, just it's so well-rounded and solid that it's hard to argue that it's the best team in the league, and it really fits Gypsy's playstyle, which makes it all the more scary because it's not like Gypsy just got a really good team, but it's not something that he's used to using, so he's kind of rusty with it. No, this is something that Gypsy really excels at using, and because of that, that just makes it so difficult to beat him because he's already one of, if not the best player in the format. So giving him a team that is not only very good, but something that he's very good at using makes it all the more scary. Now, he also has a couple transactions here that weren't there for, when I had to prep for him. So over here, instead of the Alolan Persian, there would be a Piloswine. And then over, oh no, Piloswine is still here. Who was it? Oh, Licky Licky. And then over the Togetic is a Throw. And when you look at Gypsy's team, there are some threats that I have to my team, the things that could do some pretty good work to Gypsy's, like, for example, Crabominable is a really big threat to his team, because even though Crab's not a great Pokemon, he his only thing that can resist both of Crab's stabs are Quillfish, and Crab gets Hyper Cutter, so it could hit Quillfish really hard with Earthquake, even despite Intimidate, so that is pretty cool. I have Hoopa Unbound as his Dark Resists were Mega Diancie and Throw. Throw is something that I didn't really expect. Oh, also he's got Hydreigon, but Throw is something I didn't really expect to come in this match anyway, and also gets destroyed by Psychic moves. And things like Diancie and Hydreigon are both frail offensive Pokemon for the most part that can get hit by Hoopa's other coverage very, very well. Oh, and he also made another transaction here. He had Decidueye instead of Tangrowth. So Decidueye was here. Decidueye is really good against my team, a lot better than Tangrowth is. So all around, I do have a couple of threats to him, but every single one of these Pokemon, obviously not the ones that he made the transactions for, but all the Pokemon that he had in this team are really good against me. They all have really solid sets, except for maybe Throw, but they all have really solid sets that they can bring against me, and a lot of them have multiple solid sets they can bring against me. So this matchup is very tough, because if he could play around my shenanigans like Trick Room or Speed Pass, which he easily can because he has a lot of Pokemon that can utilize Protect very well to stall at the Trick Room turns, as well as Roar, Suicune, Haze on things like Decidueye and Quillfish that could really put a damper on Speed Pass, then he's looking quite good against me, as he also has things like Gothitelle to potentially trap whatever could really threaten his team on my team. So it is a rough matchup. I have no switches to Landorus. My only Diancie switch-in is Bronzong, which he could really take advantage of with things like Hydreigon. He could trap with Gothitelle. Celesteela takes on Bronzong quite easily, as Bronzong can't even touch Celesteela. So it is a rough matchup, to say the very least. If it wasn't Gypsy, then it might not be as bad, but knowing how good Gypsy is at preparing and the fact that he won't fall for really any of my tricks just makes the matchup that much worse. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's unwinnable. I never really think a matchup is unwinnable, but when there's someone as good as Gypsy, then there's a good chance that even if I do my absolute best, it could still be unwinnable. Kind of like it was against someone like Mono. Mono's also a fantastic player, and my matchup really was incredibly tough against him. Same thing with David. They're both very good players. So with the matchups being that tough, they were close, pretty much as close as it can get to being unwinnable. And Gypsy's is just like this as well. Just that Gypsy is, I would even put him on a level above pretty much every other coach in the league other than myself. So this is going to be a very uphill battle, to say the very least. But if I can get this win, then we can go into week 7 at 3-4, which would be really, really big, because then we could even potentially lose one more game in our last 3 games and still have a decent shot at making the playoffs by going 5-5. So if I can get this win, it could put us in a great spot, because if we can potentially go 6-4 and win our last 3 games, which is a lot more possible in my opinion with the new transactions, then we should definitely make the playoffs at 6-4, which would be an awesome way to come back from a really rough start. So this is our chance to potentially knock off the King, but more importantly than that is overall I really need to make sure I keep the game close, because if I just get blown out here, then I can be in a lot of trouble when it comes to the playoff race and even potentially the relegation race, because if I don't do well in my last few games and I have really low differential, then I could either get relegated or have to play someone to get relegated to the minors, and if that happens, then you probably won't be seeing me in the NPL anymore. So that is something we want to avoid at all costs. So we really need to keep this game close, but it's just going to be so difficult because the matchup is so tough and Gypsy is so good, and the mock battles have not been going well. So I'm going to do my absolute best and definitely put in more prep and work in than I've done in a very long time, because this season, even though I have been trying, I haven't had the motivation to do well as much as I usually have. But when it comes to playing against someone like Gypsy, the spark in me usually flares up and I put in that extra work. So that's definitely what I did, and I'm going to show you guys my team prep overall, and then we'll move on to the game. So I'll see you guys there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we are for the team preparation. Now, when I uploaded a video against Aki for the ITL, because I filled in for one of his coaches a few weeks ago, when I play someone that I consider to be one of the best players in the format, a lot of times I'll go an extra mile when it comes to preparation, and I'll actually go out of my own way to build a team that I think is pretty much the best my opponent could bring against me, or at least close to it, because if I can build a team for my own that can counteract this team or have a chance against winning against this team and still have checks to the rest of my opponent's potential sets that I think are pretty viable that could come, then I like my prep, because it could potentially beat the best team he could bring against me if I play it well, and it also should be able to play around some other things should they bring those. So that is why I went out of my way to build this team, to give myself some insight on what I think Gypsy could or should bring and how I should kind of counteract that. So here, first off, we have the Landorus theory, and I have absolutely zero switch-ins to this Pokemon. Of course, Bronzong has Levitate, but there's a good chance he could bring something like Gravity and Swords Dance, Knockoff, whatever it is. I think this is his best set with enough speed for at least Hoopa. I think he can go even more and create Meloetta, but it's up to him. He gets outsped by Crocodile anyway, so he may not want to run all that speed, expecting to get outsped by Crocodile and knowing that I may not want to run max speed on my Meloetta because it doesn't really hit any specific speed tiers on his team. So, like I said, there's a good chance he will just run enough speed for Hoopa, but I think both could come. I don't know if he's going to run a lot of bulk or a lot of attack, because his dual stabs are so good against my team, especially with the Z-Fly, that he doesn't really need a lot of bulk or a lot of attack to just nuke my team pretty hard. So I can see him running a lot of bulk, like just max HP, something like that. But overall, I do see the speed coming. I do think he's going to bring a Jolly Landorus, and I do expect Z-Fly on this Lando just because, just because Landorus is really threatening to my entire team and can U-turn out in the one thing that could potentially switch in, which is Bronzong, which Gypsy could take advantage of with some of his Pokemon, like I said. Sorry about that. And this thing can get up rocks against most of my team because it outspeeds a good amount of my team. There isn't much of my team that could 1 KO it. There isn't much of my team that could outrun it and pressure it. So it can get up rocks against a lot of my team and hit basically my entire team hard. So this is kind of what I'm expecting from Gypsy. But I do think other moves could come like Gravity, Swords Dance, Smackdown, just things like that, even Knockoff potentially. Even Double Dance, Landorus is very, very threatening to my squad. But I think this is just such a solid set against me that, like, with the rest of his team members, this just fits really well. And it's just super easy to use. It's going to put in work pretty much no matter what. So that is what I'm expecting. So next we have the Suicune. I'm expecting something kind of like this. Scald and Roar, I think, are going to be guaranteed for the most part. I'm not sure if he's going to want to run like Scald with Toxic, Protect and Roar, just for some Protect stalling. Maybe he's going to run Ice Beam instead of Protect. Maybe he's going to run Calm Mind instead of one of these moves. Maybe he's going to run Scald, Ice Beam, Protect Roar, or Toxic Roar. Something like that. And be physically defensive. I don't know if he's going to be max Phys Def. I think he's going to run a little bit of speed to maybe creep something. Or even a little bit of Spadef if there's something that he wants to take hits from better, like the Blastoise. Overall, I think that he's going to be mostly physically defensive, though, because he doesn't really have good checks at things like Crabominable. And if something like Celesteela gets weakened, then Scolipede could be a major threat to him. So to have something else that could take hits or something that could stop my setup potential with, a mon like Scolipede will be very useful for him. So this is kind of the set that I'm expecting from him. Just generally physically defensive. I don't know the exact spread he's going to bring, but with Scald and Roar for sure, and then either like Ice Beam, Calm Mind. What else could he possibly run here? Yeah, just Ice Beam or Calm Mind. I think just with these 4 moves, they're all different. They all could be swapped out for one another. They're all viable against me, basically. But Scald and Roar, I think, are the most important. Then next we have the Celesteela. I think it's going to be physically defensive, but I think he's going to have some Spadef because he's going to want to be able to take hits a little bit better from things like Mega Blastoise and Meloetta. I think he's going to be generally physically defensive because of Scolipede. Even something like Archeops could be a major threat. But for the most part, I think that he can afford to probably run some special defense. I'm not exactly sure, but we'll see. Heavy Slam, I think, will definitely come. I think Leech Seed will definitely come. Now, I'm not sure about Flamethrower and Protect. I think that Toxic is also a pretty good option. Even Substitute is decent, but I don't think he's going to want to run Sub and wear down his own Celesteela because of how much it checks defensively on my team. So I think if there was one move that could be substituted in here, it would be Toxic, either over Flamethrower or Protect. So I think this is what he's going to run on Celesteela. I'm not really expecting him to creep a lot of speed with this thing, as there is something that I may want to use to creep Celesteela. But it's not something that you would really expect to creep Celesteela. So, yeah. Next, we'll go on to his Mega Diancie. I definitely think this Pokemon is coming. I don't know if he's going to want to run a max speed set with just enough for an Adamant Archeops, as that outspeeds everything else relevant on my team. Scolipede will outspeed Diancie anyway. So I'm not sure exactly what he's going to want to do there. But he's got some room to run some extra HP here, which that would be kind of annoying because that could, allow his Diancie to potentially live certain moves that I wouldn't want it to live. But I do even see him running like a max speed Diancie because Archeops, especially a Choice Banded Archeops, could be one of, if not the biggest threats to his team. And like if I can keep rocks off the field, then Archeops really, really threatens him and hits him quite hard because his only rock resist is Throw, which isn't a good Archeops switch in considering I'm a flying type as well, and just isn't a great Pokemon against my team. So Archeops is a very big threat, especially because Stone Edge could crit, so it could like ignore things like Intimidate from Landorus or Quillfish. So if he wants to try to play safe, a little bit more safely around it, he may want to go max speed on Diancie, because if I'm not running max on Archeops, then he could outspeed me. And if I am running max, at least it's a speed tie and it kind of puts it up in the air. So that is why I think that max speed may come, but I think overall he will run dual stabs like Diamond Storm and Moonblast. I think that Protect, there's a good chance just because of Trick Room, and he could potentially stall out some Trick Room turns. And in the last slot here, I'm not exactly sure. He could run Stealth Rocks if he doesn't run it on Landorus. I even saw a couple Trick Room Diancie sets in Mox, and I think that's also a pretty viable possibility, as he could offset my own Trick Room, or even help check speed pass or something like that, which could be quite annoying. And if I don't have Bronzong, then Diancie just destroys everything on my team. And even if I do have Bronzong, and he can take advantage with things like Hydreigon or Decidueye or what's that other Pokemon? Celesteela. There's one more that I'm forgetting about, but Gothitelle. Then I, really know that the Diancie could just put in so much work, and he's going to be hoping for that. So then next we have Hydreigon. I definitely think this is going to be similar to the spread he's going to run, unless he has some specific things he wants to live. I think that he should creep Meloetta with this Hydreigon. He doesn't really lose much by not creeping the Meloetta, because he could also creep the Crocodile as well. So with this speed, he creeps max Crocodile, and he goes max special attack. Because I have 0 switch-ins to Hydreigon, my best thing to resist his dual stabs is Whimsicott, which gets hit very hard by something like a Specs Dark Pulse. But here, as you see, I have Chople Berry. I think Chople Berry is really useful against my team, as it could potentially help him live things like fighting moves from Meloetta or Hoopa, fighting moves like an Aura Sphere from Mega Blastoise, which would get stabbed normally, and probably Oko Hydreigon, Superpower from Crocodile. Even if I wanted to just not risk Mega Horn on a Hydreigon and go with Superpower with Scolipede or something like that, that could be a potential possibility. So I think Chople Berry is a good item against me, but I think Specs and Scarf are also quite good against me, and I don't know which one he's going to bring, as they all put in a lot of work. Specs really takes advantage of Bronzong if I bring it, so that is a major possibility. Scarf definitely is solid against what I'm bringing, but I think generally Scarf isn't the best set against me. I would take Chople or Specs over Scarf, but it definitely can work, especially as it gets momentum in U-turn, which also could be nice for him U-turning out against something like Hoopa Unbound, because 4 times weak to it. So either I switch out into something else and he gets a good matchup, or he just knocks out the Hoopa while he U-turns. So that is very annoying, and this Hydreigon is a big problem. And finally, in this last slot, I think it could be mixed up with a bunch of different things. I think the Decidueye could come, and I think that it could be a few different sets that all are pretty solid against me. It's either bulky Decidueye with Cobra Berry that could try to spin block Blastoise and also just have Defog for nice coverage. Because if he could spin block Blastoise and get a little bit of damage on it, then he can bring in something faster and try to knock out my Blastoise before I could spin. That would be quite problematic for me. And he could also bring a fast Cobra Berry Decidueye, because he could potentially creep things like Hoopa and Blastoise speed-wise. And even if I do outspeed him, then if he's got the Cobra Berry intact and he's healthy, he could live a Dark move from both of those Pokemon, most likely, and either get big damage off on them or knock them out with its pretty good attacking stats and super effective coverage against both, as Decidueye stabs against my team are unresisted, I'm pretty sure. So it's a really big threat offensively to my team. And then finally, there's Choice Scarf I have here, because if he doesn't have Scarf on the rest of his Pokemon, like say he's Chople Hydreigon, and he just wants a little bit of speed control, Scarf Decidueye is quite threatening against me, because he can't afford to run Adamant, because all he really needs to do is outspeed everything naturally on my team, as I can't run something like Scarf Mega Blastoise, and if I am Scarf Hoopa, then I'm going to outspeed Decidueye anyway, even if he is Jolly. So he can afford the Adamant for the extra power, and his moveset hits me really hard. So I think all those sets are really viable against me. But I also think that he could bring a couple other Pokemon in this slot. I think Gothitelle would be his next most likely one, as it could trap things like Hoopa, Blastoise, especially Bronzong. And I don't expect him to be a choice Gothitelle. I think that he would be something like a Cobra Berry Goth as well, with a lot of bulk, just because he's got the coverage moves and support moves to be able to cripple a lot of my threats, maybe Thunder Wave, Foul Play, Signal Beam. He doesn't need to be Choice Scarf to really do that in a lot of the scenarios. Even Mirror Coat plus plus Cobra Berry could be really a good tech for him. So I think the Gothitelle is pretty likely to come if he does not bring Decidueye. But then there's also things like Licky Licky, which could wall a good amount on my team, and just a really solid bulky Pokemon in general that could keep his team healthy with Wishes potentially. And then even Quillfish, which can resist something like a Bandicrab Abominable and make it difficult for me to predict around, as well as getting up hazards against my team. So I do have a good hazard remover against his team. Blastoise is one of my biggest threats against his team, but he can potentially try to spin block it with Decidueye, with some either fancy prediction or some Cobra Berry text and whatnot. So the Quillfish, I think, can come, and it can also outspeed something like Hoopa Unbound, which it could lure it in and then maybe knock it out with Pin Missile if he wants to do something like that. So that is basically what I have to say about what I think Gypsy can bring. And no matter what, if it's anything similar to this, even though I am expecting something like this, I still think that it's such an uphill battle that my team just cannot really take on his team. Like unless he just does everything wrong and just makes tons of mistakes, and I can't realistically see myself pulling this one through against him. But that doesn't mean we're not going to try our absolute best. I do have some good ideas in mind that may be able to catch him off guard and put in some work, so I will get into that very shortly. Okay, so for my team, now I put in more time into this team than I have for pretty much any team in quite some time, possibly since the last time I played Gypsy, which was NPL Season 6, where we actually 6-0'd him, which was crazy. We definitely had a solid matchup, but 6-0ing Gypsy King, no matter what the matchup is something that's never happened and probably will never happen again. So that just goes to show that the approach that we took, putting in all that work, really did help us get that solid win over the King. So now I knew that, you know, this required even more effort, so I put in probably even more effort than that one. I played 10 different mock battles and I lost them all, but it helped me tweak my team a little bit. And there were a few games where I had, you know, a shot, you know, like it just came down to either hacks or rolls, maybe my opponent making a certain play or me getting a 50-50 wrong. It just, most of the games I did lose, but there were a few where there was some hope. And overall, some of my opponents, even though they're all, you know, good players and good builders, I just knew that wasn't going to be exactly what Gypsy was going to bring or what he was going to do. And I felt more comfortable against what Gypsy was actually going to bring and do, despite him being just, you know, overall a better player and builder than pretty much everyone else. So it may not make a lot of sense, because it's like, oh, if he's better, then it's going to be more difficult against him. But like, if you could really understand the way someone thinks, it could help you throughout the course of a battle, because some of the other people, I just didn't agree with their approaches to either their builds or their plays. They just weren't as advanced as Gypsy's, and they didn't make as much sense overall. So, and also they're just giving me mock battles, so they're not going to sit and put like hours to make sure that their team is perfect. They're just trying to give me a look. So overall, I just knew that the real game was going to be a little bit different. But regardless, the fact that I was just losing mock after mock was definitely disheartening, because it's like, okay, if these guys aren't supposed to be as good as Gypsy, how come I can't win a single game? But I knew that this was pretty much the best team I could bring. I really, really felt it in my heart that I couldn't bring anything better. And I was just going to have to try to play my best and hope that my plans work, because I do understand the way Gypsy builds and plays, for the most part at least. So I'm going to have to kind of bank on that. So we're going to start off here with my used Colossal, my Crocodile, a very good set against him. The investment allows me to live a Scarf, Hydreigon's Draco Meteor guaranteed, whereas the bulk allows me to live any of Landorus's Z moves, and like without an Intimidate. So I could live any of Landorus's Z moves, and I just gave the rest, except for like a Z fighting move, like a Z superpower, but I don't think he's going to bring that. So I have the rest in attack, just because I didn't really need anything in these in this spot, and I could outspeed a max speed Landorus T. As we have our dual stabs, Earthquake and Knockoff. Knockoff is just Dark is pretty good coverage against his team, and his Dark resists get hit pretty hard by Earthquake, like Mega Diancie. Hydreigon doesn't get hit by Earthquake, but pretty much everything else doesn't appreciate losing their items, so that is pretty cool. We have Taunt to potentially prevent Landorus from getting up its rocks, and we have rocks of our own with the Roselli Berry, which allows us to potentially set up rocks on a Mega Diancie, forcing it out, either bluffing a Scarf or him realizing that I may be Roselli and him not wanting to risk losing his Diancie so early on in the game, because this is going to be my dedicated lead no matter what. So this Crocodile has been doing what it needed to do in most of the mocks, but I may have to play kind of aggressively with it, even though I would like to kind of keep it around and not just get up rocks and die. It may be what I have to do, just because I really want to prevent rocks coming up on my side at all costs. So then next, we have a Pokemon that could take advantage of not allowing hazards to go up, and that is my used Crabominable over here. And now this Pokemon, like I mentioned in my when I showed the matchups on the NPL doc, is a really big threat to his team because he does not have very good switch-ins to its dual stabs, except for the Quillfish, which I'm not sure would come. You know, I think that it potentially could come, but I don't think that it is a guarantee or anything because Crab does have the Hyper Cutter, and he runs a risk of sending in Quillfish just to get destroyed by an Earthquake because he can't lower my stats. So, because of that, Crab is a pretty big threat to his team because he may not even want to bring Quillfish, and if he doesn't have Quillfish, then he doesn't have switch-ins to my dual stabs. But I know he's going to have checks for Trick Room. So here, we are not going with a Crab that really takes advantage of Trick Room. Rather, we are going with a Crab that is actually creeping a lot of speed. We have enough speed for something like an uninvested Decidueye. Oh, like we have a little bit more than that just in case the Decidueye creeped a little bit, just something like that. But we should definitely outspeed Celesteela. I do not expect him to have speed on Celesteela because, or you know, a lot of speed on Celesteela because it isn't really hitting any specific speed tiers that I think he would need. So, like outspeeding something like a Mega Blastoise, unless he's offensive, then I really would not expect that. So, this Crab can put in quite a bit of work against this team if the Focus Sash is up, because then it can get off 2 hits on some of his biggest threats, like the or this, you know, bulkiest Pokemon like his Celesteela and his Suicune, which could be really important for me potentially trying to clean up late game, especially with something like Archeops, as you do see in the preview there. So I have a max attack Adamant, almost max speed Crabominable. Like I said, should creep the Celesteela, should creep an uninfested Decidueye and Gothitelle, things like that. Whereas I have Close Combat and Ice Hammer, the dual stabs. We don't have Iron Fist, so Ice Hammer isn't as strong, but we also have Earthquake and then finally Ice Punch. Crab just doesn't have that wide of a move pool, so it doesn't have that many moves to choose from. So I just put Ice Hammer on there because in case something is in, or Ice Punch I put on there, just in case something is in range of an Ice Punch and I don't want to have to risk a miss, I have the Ice Punch on there. There was no way I'm running Dynamic Punch again, so yeah, that is the full set. But it really could be nice because something like a Celesteela, if he's physically defensive, even if he's max Phys Def, Close Combat should be doing around 40 from an Adamant Crab, and if he has like some Spadef, then it should be doing a little bit more than that, possibly even close to 50%, which would certainly be nice because after Stealth Rocks, 2 high roll Close Combats could potentially knock it out. Obviously, he's probably going to have Protect, but just getting a Celesteela that low will pretty much render it useless for the rest of the match, and it really can't check some of the other Pokemon on my team that it normally may be able to check. So this Crab is a very big threat to his team if I could prevent the hazards from going up. And I was definitely debating over different things like Meloetta in this slot, even maybe Scolipede, but last minute this just came to me and I was like, you know what? Focus Sash Crab it is. I definitely don't think he's going to expect it, and I do think that if I could prevent the rocks up, it should do exactly what I needed to. So next we have my used Lumineon, definitely one of the biggest threats to his team. Just going with Skull and Dark Pulse, have the stab on the Dark Pulse through Mega Launcher pretty much, so that is pretty solid coverage against his team overall. Only resisted by the Hydreigon, but I really just need a little bit of chip on the Hydreigon. I don't necessarily need, I mean, Ice Beam and Aura Sphere would be nice, and I was debating over something like Ice Beam. Aura Sphere definitely not, because I want something to hit the Decidueye, but I was debating on Ice Beam over Dark Pulse, but I could see my overall Dark Pulse is a little more solid, especially if he's not Cobra Decidueye, or if he is Cobra and I do pop the Dark Pulse, or pop the Cobra, then I could 2 KO it afterwards, where if he's like full Spadef with leftovers or something, then Ice Beam he could potentially avoid 2 KOs from with my investment. And I kind of have to go with this investment because I'm running enough to live a Z move from a Landorus T, either being, you know, like Earthquake or Flyinium. And then we have enough speed for a max Gothitelle, which I don't expect he's going to run, but it could also creep an Adamant max Decidueye. So I just figured that this could be a good amount of speed to run here with just a little bit of special attack and a modest nature, as it does hit his team quite hard. The only thing, like I said, I really debated here was the Ice Beam, but I knew I needed the Roar because of the Suicune, because of things liking to protect against my team. I could Roar those, and if I have Rocks up, then I can get some chip on his team. So next we have my use level 1 Bull, because I couldn't think of a meme name for Whimsicott, with the Expert Belt. Actually, this is kind of an interesting set. We have enough to creep the Mega Diancie and max special attack, but we are timid with a little bit of bulk just to potentially take hits a little bit better, because we don't really need the knockoff and U-turn doing tons of damage to things. I just figured because like the main target for Energy Ball was Mega Diancie, so an Expert Belt Energy Ball and Metal Plate Energy Ball do the same amount of damage, so well, to Diancie, something that's super effective against. Same thing with Suicune. So if I'm gonna run Metal Plate and I'm pretty much just aiming Energy Ball at things like Suicune or Diancie, then I might as well just run Expert Belt, because knockoff could hit things like Decidueye a bit harder, U-turn could hit things like Gothitelle and Hydreigon a bit harder, and that could just be like a little useful. Any little chip damage could really come in clutch this game. That's just kind of how Pokemon works in general, but in this game, any little bit of chip damage that could potentially allow me to knock more Pokemon out could be really important because of how crucial it is to keep this battle close. So I really debated on HP Ice on this set over Knockoff, but Knockoff was just coming in handy a lot because Celesteela is most likely going to be his switch-in to Whimsicott. So if Celesteela is the switch-in, then Knockoff is pretty useful, as it will remove its item and make it harder for Celesteela to stay healthy, which is important. But also, none of his team really appreciates having his item knocked off, and the one thing that can't really be knocked off is Diancie, which I could knock out with an Energy Ball. So HP Ice really would be kind of nice for something like Hydreigon, but especially Landorus T. But I just, it wasn't, those situations really weren't arising in mocks to where I felt like I should go with HP Ice instead. But I did debate it a lot. As next we have our last run with Use Malamar here, Hoopa Unbound. Last time it'll be on our team for Season 7. And we have a Modest Nature with enough speed to creep, it was enough speed to creep a Gothitelle, but just like a little bit more, just in case he tried to creep that, I guess. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we have enough physical defense to take even an Adamant Landorus's U-turn after Stealth Rocks if we were able to Memento something with Whimsicott. I forgot to go back and say the last move here is Memento, because this is really important for our win con here, which is the Dark EMZ Hoopa with Double Dance, basically. Snatch with the Dark EMZ gives you a +2 speed boost, which is very threatening with a Pokemon as strong and with as amazing coverage as Hoopa. So that could be really nice against this team, as it should outspeed everything, including all of his Scarfers, which is cool. And then we have just dual stabs here. I know you may be thinking just coverage moves may be better, and I really debated a set where it was Dark Pulse, Thunderbolt, and Focus Blast instead of, you know, Hyperspace Hole and Nasty Plot. But at the end of the day, a lot of people were winning mocks against me with like Toxic Stalling, and they would just get a Toxic on Hoopa as I set up my Double Dance, and then they would just protect and protect, and it was definitely annoying, as usually they would have enough Pokemon left to be able to stall out Hoopa by sacking certain things and coming back in and taking or being able to protect and just wear me down more and more. So with Hyperspace Hole, I could actually go right through the protect, and I don't think he's going to expect that. So that is pretty cool. And also with the Nasty Plot, I can also break through some of his fatter things like Licky Licky potentially. Like if he had something like Chople on Licky, or just trying to rely on Focus Blast, as he could just Toxic and protect against me, would be really, really annoying, and it would be tough to wear it down. And it came into situations in certain mocks where his team was just too fat for me to break with that coverage set. So I just decided that this breaker set is a little bit better overall, and being able to potentially go through the protects, which I'm definitely expecting with the Hyperspace Hole, can definitely clutch me the game if he's not expecting it and he doesn't have enough Pokemon left to potentially stall me out with Toxic. So this is the win condition, and our second win condition, if this can put in some work and wear some things down, is use Archeops here. We have an Adamant Choice Scarf Archeops with Stone Edge, Aqua Tail, Head Smash, and U-turn. Aqua Tail is nice for things like Mega Diancie and Landorus T. If you know they're in range of it, it hits them super effectively and is a little bit more accurate than Stone Edge and Head Smash. Stone Edge is pretty nice against his team because he doesn't have any rock resists. other than throw, and Stone Edge could crit through Intimidates and whatnot, and it's not wearing me down, knocking me under Defeatist. So if my Stone Edge is hit, then Archeops is pretty dangerous. But if something is in range of Head Smash and I really need that power to either weaken something or just knock it out, a what's it called? A Scarf Head Smash is, I think, even stronger than a Banded Stone Edge from Archeops. So that's just how strong Archeops and Head Smash are. So that is really cool. As a, what's it called? A Scarf Head Smash can do up to like 50% to a physically defensive Suicune, which is crazy for a Scarf Pokemon. Like, that's wild. So I definitely was convinced by Jolt to run Head Smash over Rock Slide, because I had Rock Slide because I was initially banned on this set, but then I was like, you know what, with Scarf, the Rock Slide just isn't doing that much, and it's still not that accurate. I was still missing my Rock Slides and Aqua Tails in Mox, so I was like, you know what, it just may come to a situation where I need more power, so I'm going to go with the Head Smash. And I did decide to go with the Head Smash and U-turn for obvious reasons. Oh, we disconnected. And we're back. So we disconnected, but here we are. And yeah, just basically the Archeops set is pretty straightforward. If I could weaken his team, then this thing can definitely maybe not clean up the game, but at least clean up a couple more Pokemon towards the end, which could be really useful for us keeping it close. But yeah, this is definitely, I'm planning to not really try to like clean up with this thing until I could really do a lot of damage to this team, because yeah, it can kind of break open some holes in his team with something like a Scarf Head Smash, but late game, if I've weakened things on his team, then this really has the potential to clean up some leftover Pokemon, especially if I can catch him off guard with the Hoopa set and do more work than I'm expecting. Then Archeops actually does have a chance to win the game. So this is the team. I think, considering how rough the matchup is, it's the best thing I could bring. And I just need to hope that my knowledge of the game and how someone like Gypsy likes to prepare and play will allow me to keep the game close, because like I said in Mox, I wasn't really necessarily agreeing with what all my opponents are doing or were doing. So that was kind of throwing me off, but I was like, you know what, I can't lose my head. I can't get thrown off. I'm playing Gypsy. I'm not playing all these people in Mox. I just wanted to make sure that I had enough mock battles to make sure I felt my team was as good as it could possibly be. And I didn't change too much from the first time I made this team, but I think I tweaked enough to make sure it was a little bit better against what I really was expecting Gypsy to bring. So I know this has been a really long team prep session, but I'm telling you guys, I think it's going to be worth it. As this, whenever Gypsy and I play, it's as high level as the draft format gets. So that is why I really try to do my best to go out of my way to inform and teach and just lead by example on how I think the format should really be approached, especially for games of this high level and magnitude. So without further ado, we will go on to the NPL Season 7 Week 7 game against the Sydney Sharpedos, coached by Gypsy King. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the actual game, and if you guys just skipped all the team prep, I will just fill you in a little bit. I was mentioning during the prep that I had 10 mock battles for this game, and I went 0-10. I lost every single one of them, but I was mentioning in the team prep that I put in so much work in this prep, and I was pretty confident in what Gypsy might bring and how he might play it. So even though I wasn't doing as well in mocks, I was confident that I would do better in the actual game than the mocks. But either way, I was still 0-10, and he still has a really good matchup. And he's Gypsy King, which means that you know he's going to play well, because he's just too good not to. So I apologize if the video was lagging a little bit. I guess it's just Camtasia. I should probably work on getting a new recording system, but I'm just too lazy. So I apologize for that. But we will just go over the team preview here, as here he is as Gypsy King, and here we are as Suns in My Eyes. This is my name because, like, if I win this game, then I have just officially proven once again that I'm the best player in the format, because, you know, everyone says that Gypsy is, but if I beat him with this team, then I'm definitely the best. But if I lose, then, like, the sun was obviously in my eyes, because, you know, I'm the best, but like every now and then people get the sun in their eyes and they just can't see which button to click. So that's why I have this, because if I make any plays that just seem really questionable here, or if I just choke and kind of lose the game, then you'll know that the sun was in my eyes. So I just had to get that out there, because it's really bright where I live. And even though I try to play inside, and I try to wear sunglasses, it doesn't matter. It just always seems to seep through. So with the team preview here, he brought pretty much what I was expecting, except he's got the Gothitelle here over Decidueye, which I said I think Gothitelle will be the next most likely over Decidueye. So other than that, it's all pretty similar. I just don't know the exact sets. So, like I said, Krookodile is the dedicated lead, and we will lead with it. So we lead with Use Colossal as he goes with his Sierra Leone, his Mega Diancie, as he Mega Evolves, and we go right for the Protect, because I really was expecting the we go right for the Earthquake, because I really was expecting the Protect, because number one, it allows him to get his Mega off. Number two, it allows him to see what Krookodile wants to do, and I can't set up rocks on his Protect because of Magic Bounce. And then number three, I expected it because of the Trick Room turns, and what happened? We lost Diancie. Will it come back when he switches out? So here he switches out into his Landorus T, as I have to predict that, and I go with the Stealth Rocks right there. Now I know that that was a very risky play, but if you guys watched my team prep and just listened to me say that I lost all 10 mocks, you'll realize why I have to play this so aggressively. Now, he could have been well aware that I could be Roselli Berry, but regardless, Krookodile could still knock out his Mega Diancie, and he does not see Bronzong against my team. That's one of the reasons I didn't bring Bronzong, because not only can it get taken advantage of by some of his other Pokemon, but it also really makes his Mega Diancie look a lot more useful, which it is, but it allows me to lead with this Krookodile and force it out. Just knowing Gypsy as aggressively as he can play at times, there was just not a good enough reason for him to stay in there, and I totally agree. I would have made the exact same play, because at the end of the day, as obvious as the Roselli Berry may have been, because number one, he has to respect the Scarf. If I am Scarf, then, you know, then I'm going to outspeed an Earthquake and KO him. But if I'm not Scarf, and I am the Roselli Berry, if I do, like, predict him to call my bluff and stay in a Moonblast, and I do Earthquake, then he just loses way too much, because it's you know, not worth it for him overall to lose his Diancie when I don't have a single remote Diancie switching. So overall, I think that was definitely in his best interest to switch out, which is why I really had to try to capitalize on him with these Stealth Rocks. So now here he goes into his Landorus, and I am just going to taunt here, because I don't have a good safe switch into Landorus. I could potentially go Blastoise, but I don't lose too much by taunting here. And if I do taunt and he goes for rocks, then I'm actually in a pretty good spot, as I can go for knockoff and scout the set, as he does go for the rocks, which is great. So here I go for the knockoff, and he U-turns out, and that damage and on both moves reveals to me that he's probably closer to a max HP Landorus, because my knockoff... Sorry, the phone. What is rocking, everybody? I am back! Yeah, sorry guys, that was my house phone, so I paused it. But the damages on both moves there help me scout his set, because the knockoff tells me that he has a Z move, almost definitely, and also that he, has a lot of HP to be able to take only that much from the knockoff. If he was like max offense, he would have taken at least 20, something around there. And then the U-turn damage only did 45, which is if he was a max attack Landorus, then he would have been doing over 50. So that is good information to know, at least. But that said, it probably is a little bit better against me than a fully offensive one, because he could still nuke my team, and he could also now take hits better too, which is annoying. As here he goes back into Mega Diancie, and I don't know why the picture won't show up, but that is a Mega Diancie right there. Sierra Leone is its name, so just trying to let you guys know so my bad quality doesn't ruin the video. So here he goes back into his Diancie, and if he's max special attack, which I am expecting, then the roll to knock me out with Moonblast is heavily in his favor, but I do have a chance to live, and if he is not max special attack for some reason, then I have a pretty decent chance to live. So I am just going to stay in here in Earthquake, because I don't have a switch into this thing. As he does go for the Moonblast, it pops my Roselli Berry, and he does knock me out. So here I go to use Lumineon. I was considering going for the Dark Pulse here, because the Suicune is his most likely switch-in, but if I burn the Suicune with the Scald, then that is just as good as getting a little bit more damage off with the Dark Pulse. So there's really not too much of a reason for me to not go Suicune here, especially because in the first couple turns I put myself in a pretty good position to the point where he may be inclined to play a little bit more aggressively here, and he may want to stay in with his Diancie, knowing that I may go for something like an Ice Beam or a Dark Pulse. But overall, I don't think he's going to risk it, so I'm just going to go right for the Scald. Because like I said, if I do get the burn, that would be really useful against me, because the Suicune is quite annoying. Same thing with Hydreigon. We don't get the burn, but it's fine because we can go for a Dark Pulse for a little bit more chip damage here. I don't expect him to have rest on the Suicune, so any damage will be useful. So I'm going to go for the Dark Pulse, as that does a pretty good chunk, as he does get a Toxic off. Now, here I'm expecting him to go for something like Protect, and I can just roar him out because I don't expect him to send his Diancie right back in. That is kind of risky on the Blastoise. So anything else he potentially sends in will get, chipped by the Stealth Rocks, and then it'll just force something else to come in and get chipped more by the Stealth Rocks. So I'm going to go for the Roar. He actually reveals Calm Mind here, which is interesting. Calm Mind Toxic on the Suicune. So here he comes back into his Mega Diancie. Now this is kind of bad just because on this next turn we are going to take 18% from the Toxic. So if we just stay in and Scald as he goes for the obvious Protect, then we are actually going to take a lot of damage. So here I'm actually going to take an interesting risk. So I don't have anything that could avoid being 2-hit KO'd by this Mega Diancie right here, except for Blastoise. Not that I could avoid being 2-hit KO'd, but I can avoid being knocked out by a Moonblast or a Diamond Storm from this range of HP. So if he goes for an attack, expecting me to predict the Protect and go into something on a hard switch, then at least Blastoise can take it, and I can go for Roar. Because if I go for Roar, 3 out of my 4 remaining Pokemon can come in on this Diancie and beat it 1v1, because Whimsicott can knock it out guaranteed with the Energy Ball. Even if he has a lot of HP invested, he's definitely in range of an Energy Ball with an Expert Belt. Archeops can definitely knock it out with Aqua Tail and Head Smash, and Crabominable can definitely knock it out with Earthquake, because I have a Focus Sash, and they all, well, Whimsicott and Archeops outspeed. So if I go for Roar here, then I have a 3 in 4 chance of not getting roared into Hoopa, because the Magic Bounce will bounce back the Roar, which would be nice. And if he does Protect, then I don't take any damage on Blastoise, and I get sent in to something that hopefully can revenge the Diancie. If I get sent into Hoopa, well, that is very bad, and I'm going to have to sack my Blastoise afterwards, but this has a 3 in 4% chance of working out. That's 75% chance of working out well for me, especially because Protect, I do believe, is his best play overall, as going for the attack and just risking me knocking out his Diancie is a big risk to take, especially because, like, even though I'm playing well right now, he still just has the tools to not have to play so aggressively. He really does not have to risk anything right now, because he's still in a good spot to win the game despite me outplaying him in the early going so far. So I am going to go for the Roar on his Protect, and thankfully we are bounced back into the Archeops, which is something that could take on this Diancie. And I'm going to predict either his Celesteela or his Landorus to come in, and I'm going to U-turn and go right into my Crabominable. So now it's Crab's time to shine. He does not have a good switch into this Crab. His Suicune is really worn down, so he can't even try to switch into Suicune. And if I just click an Ice move here, then Gothitelle could get blown back as well. So I don't have the, what's it called, Iron Fist, so Close Combat is going to be stronger than Ice Hammer here, and I don't want my speed being lowered, because I want to outspeed this Celesteela twice and get 2 big hits off, as I know he's probably going to expect me to be Life Orb or Ban, and know that Heavy Slam should just be able to OHKO me, especially after a potential close combat. But I do have the Focus Sash. So here is Crabominable's time to shine against the King, as we go right for a close combat. Nice 43%, really good chunk, as here he goes for the Heavy Slam, and we live that with our Focus Sash, which is really nice, as I just do not have a great reason to go for an Ice move here. I'm going to stick going for close combat, because if he's not a faster Gothitelle than my Crab, which he may very well not be, because like I said, I think a bulky set is better, and I have enough for I have well over enough for an uninvested Gothitelle. Then if he goes in a Goth and I go for something like Close Combat, he could be in range of Ice Hammer after the Close Combat and Stealth Rocks. If I go right for the Ice Hammer, then he just takes a really big chunk on his Gothitelle, and then I would have weakened both his Goth, which if he's a bulky Goth, getting all that damage off on it could really limit the role that Gothitelle is supposed to play, and then also weakened the Celesteela a pretty fair amount, even with just this one Close Combat. So it really is not in his best interest to switch, in my opinion, so I think he's just going to stay in and let his Celesteela get weakened, because his Celesteela still will win this trade, but weakening it is just very, very important for me. So I'm just going to go for another Close Combat, and this one does 48.4%, so that is a really good chunk, as now the Celesteela is just barely out of range of coming in on Stealth Rock. So I'm going to send in my Blastoise now, as it's my most reliable Pokemon to revenge it, and I go for Dark Pulse. I predict him not to Protect, because I was considering going for Roar because he might Protect on it, but I don't know what I'm going to Roar him into. It could give me somewhat of a bad matchup, and it could save him a sack here. And he does not have anything that wants to come into this Blastoise here. So if I go for Roar and he goes for something like Leech Seed, then he is in a pretty good spot. So I'm just going to go right for the Dark Pulse, because if he does Protect here, okay, he gets a little more damage off on me. But overall, I don't think he's going to switch out his Celesteela, because it's so low that the only thing it could potentially check is the Whimsicott. So I just felt it wasn't really worth it for him to stay in, and I felt like it was almost a little bit more beneficial for him to try to take advantage of me going aggressive and going for Roar, as opposed to just going for the safe Protect again. So that's why I went for Dark Pulse, and it did work out, as he did go for another move expecting the Roar. So now he goes into his Hydreigon. Now here is where I really wished I had the Ice Beam, because getting big damage on this would put Hoopa in a potentially amazing spot to clean up the game, as Ice Beam could do, I don't know, I'm trying to think. Ice Beam could probably do around like 50? No, more than that probably. Probably at least like 60-something%, which after the next Stealth Rock switch-in would put Hydreigon in range of a Dark Pulse from something like Hoopa Unbound, which would be huge. But obviously Dark Pulse did help us chip down the Suicune a little bit more, so that is nice. But we are just going to stay in here. We don't have a safe switch into this Hydreigon, so we're going to try to scout the set. We know we could live a Specs Dark Pulse, and it's unlikely that he's going to go for a Specs Draco if that's what he has, because going for Specs Draco would really put him back if I did switch into Whimsicott here. Because I could potentially be Akaberry Whims, which would really kind of suck for him, because if I go into Whimsicott and he does even predict that, then, you know, if he, what's it called, then, you know, I'm still in an okay spot. So if he goes for Specs Draco on Whimsicott, then that would really set him back. So he's most likely going to go for Dark Pulse even if he is Specs, and I know I could live one, so I'm going to go for the Scald here, as it should do some decent damage, and if I get a burn, that could do even more. So it does a little bit over 20%, so well, it does a little over 21% actually. Now that damage tells me that Ice Beam would have done quite a bit, because Ice Beam super effective is 180 damage or 180 base power, whereas Scald being resisted is only 60 base power, so that would have done around like 63%, 64% with an Ice Beam, which would have been huge. But just getting this chip damage with Scald could be nice potentially, as after the next Stealth Rock switch, and he should be in range of a +2 Dark Pulse, should I be able to set up to +2 with Hoopa. So that is pretty cool, but you know, Ice Beam really would have been clutch there, as that Dark Pulse does do a lot. And now I realize, you know, keeping a sack here could be very useful, and I don't really need HP on my Whimsicott at all, so I am going to switch into my Whimsicott, because that damage with the Dark Pulse reveals that he is definitely Specs. So I go into my Whimsicott, and we are able to most likely avoid this 2 KO, as he does a little bit less than 50, so the roll may not be worth risking for him, number one. And number two, he doesn't even have a Fairy Resist right now, so if I am an offensive Whimsicott, I could just pretty safely click Moonblast. So I am expecting his Gothitelle to come in, because I do think his Goth is going to be bulky, and if his Goth is bulky, then he can take a Moonblast and revenge me on the next turn. Even if he's like a bulky Scarf set, or just a regular Scarf set, he can outspeed me and take a Moonblast pretty easily and then knock me out on the next turn. So I'm just going to go right for the U-turn here, because if he does make a hard prediction and stay in with the Hydreigon, then I could just sack my Blastoise, and he really does not have a very good reason to sack this Hydreigon just yet, as he does have a decent check here, and the Gothitelle So I am going to go for the U-turn right now with my use level 1 Bulu as he does go into his Gothitelle. So that damage does tell me that he is pretty physically defensive on this Goth. I don't know what the item is because he doesn't have any leftovers, but he does have a little physical defense here. Or, I mean, good amount of physical defense, rather. So, calcing it, even an Adamant Archeops probably won't knock out this Gothitelle unless I just got a really, really low roll with the Whimsicott. And then I'd have a decent chance to knock this thing out. But I calced it, and if he's the spread even close to what I think he is, then U-turn is either just barely out of range or like a really high roll. I would need like an incredibly high roll to be able to knock him out from here. But either way, I could just go for the U-turn here and sack my Blastoise off and go back into Archeops, because once I knock out this Gothitelle, because this Gothitelle should be in range of Stealth Rocks after this, once I knock out this Gothitelle, I can go into Whimsicott because it matches up well against everything against his team, and from there I can potentially try to set up with Hoopa and weaken his team a little bit for something like Archeops to potentially clean up. So here I go for the U-turn and we don't knock it out. So now I go into my use Lumineon as he's just able to knock me out with the Signal Beam. So I go back into my Archeops and I'm going to be able to U-turn again. Because like I said, my Whimsicott now has a good matchup against everything on his team because it definitely outspeeds everything. I know he's not Scarf Hydreigon. I know he's not Scarf Landorus because I outsped him with Crocodile. And obviously Suicune and the Diancie aren't Scarfed. I can knock out the Suicune and the Diancie from this range with Energy Ball. But unfortunately, like I said, I don't have the HP Ice. I mentioned this in my team prep. I was really debating the HP Ice over the Knockoff, but Knockoff came in clutch a lot more. And had I had HP Ice here, this Landorus, even with max HP, would have been in range of Hidden Power Ice, which is really unfortunate because if that was the case, then now I have a fantastic chance to win. I would literally HP Ice this Landorus, knock it out. Hydreigon comes in, I could just U-turn out and either sack Hoopa or... yeah, sacking Hoopa would be the play. And then go into Archeops, because if he doesn't sack his Hydreigon, then he switches out, and then he comes back in on Stealth Rocks later, which would put him in range of an Expert Belt HP Ice, and his Diancie and his Suicune are both in range of an Expert Belt Energy Ball, so I would have the game in the bag if I had HP Ice right here, which is crazy to think, considering how the mocks went, that I actually would have had the game in the bag had I just went with the HP Ice over the Knockoff here, and I really heavily considered it too, because I was just like, Knockoff just doesn't do any damage to anything. It's just really nice for the Celesteela switching, which is pretty obvious on the Whimsicott. And it was knocking off a lot of Celesteelas and Mox, but man, I was really considering that HP Ice because I don't have really a good move to hit Hydreigon. I do have U-turn, but I'm timid and I'm not invested in attack. So HP Ice could hit the Hydreigon pretty hard, and then it really could smack the Landorus. Even though he's max HP, I calced it, and unless he's got a little bit of Spadef, then he is pretty much definitely in range, because I think it was doing around min 70, which is crazy. So I didn't think Whimsicott would be able to do that much, but the Expert Belt gives it enough of a boost, I guess. So definitely disappointed that I don't have that here, because now my only chance is by mementoing here and going into Hoopa, as I know I could set up on this Landorus for sure, at least the Z-Snatch, and then because I got some decent damage on the Hydreigon, I have a chance to flinch it with Dark Pulse. And if I flinch it with Dark Pulse, I should be able to win the game, as then it would be in range of a second Dark Pulse. And things like Suicune, Landorus, and Diancie should all be in range of Hoopa after one more round of Stealth Rocks. So I go for the Memento here, as he goes right for the Z-Fly. And now here, I was right about the Z-Fly, because I was considering going into something like Archeops if he had a potential Z-Earthquake, because a Z-Earthquake would be able to knock out my Whimsicott, and a lot of people brought Z-Earthquake in mocks, but I really just looked at it and I was like, Z-Fly makes so much more sense. It really does. So I'm not going to risk going into Archeops here. That'd be kind of crazy. So I sacked the Whimsicott, and you can't really see the whole quote here, but I said, like, all I'm going to say right now is, and what I said after that was the feeling when you don't go with your gut. And my gut was to bring that coverage set on the Hoopa, which was Z-Snatch plus Dark Pulse, Focus Blast, and Thunderbolt. Now look at his team. The only way he wins is if I miss a Focus Blast, because Diancie should be in guaranteed range of a Focus Blast after it comes in on Stealth Rocks, or at least close. which means that the roll will be heavily in my favor. Hydreigon is definitely in range, and Suicune is definitely in range of probably even a Dark Pulse, but definitely Thunderbolt. So had I gone with that set, then right now there's a good chance this game is over. So these are two scenarios in this game where I could have had the match in the bag had I brought different sets that I was heavily debating. It's not even like hindsight is 2020. I should have brought that thing now in hindsight. No, I literally was considering these so heavily because I had a feeling that they could come down to this, but it just came to the point where like the mocks were sort of counterproductive in the sense where I was just having so many mocks and I was so worried about what was happening in the mocks as opposed to what would actually happen against Gypsy, who is different than the people in the mocks. And had I kind of listened to my gut and went along with what I really expected more from Gypsy, then I would have been in a better spot in both of these situations. Not necessarily the Whimsicott, because in that situation, I just wasn't really sure if HP Ice would come in clutch that much, but I really was debating it last minute, because knockoff, it was knocking off the Celesteels, but that's it, and I didn't really have good switch-ins to Celesteela afterwards, so it was awkward. It really did not feel great, but I was just like, you know what, Knock just seems like the best option, so I'll go with it. But the Hidden Power Ice would have definitely won me the game, but this doesn't definitely win it, but like I said, the Diancie, if he's a set that I would be expecting, or spread that I would be expecting, then he would be either in really close range of Focus Blast or guaranteed range of Focus Blast. So here, we just have to go for the Z-Snatch, as we know he's got U-Turn and we know he's going to go for it, which means we're probably not going to be able to get a Dark Pulse up for the rest of the game, as we go for the Z-Snatch here, and he goes for the U-Turn, doing quite a big chunk. But like I said, I would have been able to set up even on a max attack Adamant Landorus. So here, as you can see, I am just messing around a little bit. One of my friends posted this to me before the game. They were like, if you lose to Gypsy, then say this, and what's it called? I don't know why it's sent a bunch of times over here. My computer was spazzing out, but Gypsy's internet was bad, so he left. And then I was just like, I'm not saying it was 100% my win. I'm just saying from the plays you made to the way you're talking about the match post game, I can tell that I know way more about the game and the draft format than you do. And with the Mons in my favor and being a better player, I think I would have won the match without the I think I would have won without RNG in the match. Anyways, RNGG, the only GG I could say. So that is a quote from, I believe, Zamcro. And like, I'm not trying to make fun of Zamcro. He's a cool dude, but like someone just sent this to me and I just thought it was hilarious. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna say this because obviously there was 0 hacks in this match right now, so like just me saying this makes no sense, so I'm just posting this anyway just to troll. And then Uzi saying like GG, net dying saved you from getting embarrassed, just like kind of trolling Merc. So I'm just messing around here. No hard feelings to Zamcro or anything like that. It was just someone sent this to me and I just did it because they told me to and I thought it was funny. So here he goes into his Diancie. And as you're going to see, I forgot the Diancie was even here because it didn't show it. So he goes into his Diancie. And let me take a step back. So you can see I go for the Hyperspace Hole. But I was debating. I was like, I know he's got Protect. On the very odd chance that he clicks Protect here, because Protect definitely isn't his best play. Like, even if I have a coverage move to knock him out and he's just scouting for it, it still doesn't make sense for him to Protect here, because if I do have a coverage move and knock him out, then I knock him out. And that's just kind of the end of that. If he switches out, he puts himself in range of a hit even more easily. So I guess maybe he thought that if I had a coverage move for Diancie, maybe I wouldn't have something like Hydreigon. But the thing is, Hydreigon can't even switch into rocks and 2 Dark Pulses from here, so that doesn't make any sense. Maybe he would just sack something else like Suicune or Landorus and then go into Hydreigon, hoping that I don't have a coverage move for it. I would think that would be his thought process, because otherwise it just really didn't make a lot of sense to go for that Protect. Because like I said, even if I do have the coverage move, it's not going to matter just knowing that I have it at this point, because he doesn't have things that he could really switch into and take the hits. So he goes for the Protect here, and on the off chance, I said, like, do I go for the Nasty Plot? Because if I go for the Nasty Plot, I win this guaranteed. So do I go for the Nasty Plot on a potential choke, or do I just try to keep it close? And I came to my senses and I was like, keeping it close is the priority here. We want to win this game, obviously, but keeping it close is overall the priority because of how tough the matchup is, and us winning right now is going to be very unlikely, because the only thing we could potentially do is flinch the Hydreigon with Dark Pulse, and we are not even necessarily guaranteed to knock the Diancie out with the hyperspace hold. If he's max speed, then we do knock it out, but if he's not max speed and he's kind of that set we showed before, the roll is in our favor. But if for whatever reason he has more HP than that, then the roll is going to be in his favor. So we're not even guaranteed to knock him out with the hyperspace hold. So like, I'm really considering going for Nasty Plot here, but I'm just like, you know what? I want to keep it close. If I knock this out, then that means he goes into Hydreigon next. Even if I don't flinch it, that means Archeops should be able to get 1, possibly even 2 more kills with Head Smash, which means we will lose the game only 0-1 or 0-2, which will help us in the differential race if we could win our last 3 games of the season. So I need to do what's best for the playoff race more than just trying to win this game. So I figured the chances of getting a Dark Pulse flinch on Hydreigon is a lot higher than the chances of Gypsy choking and going for Protect. But as you can see, he did go for the Protect. And I'm just like, oh my god, I would have won if I went for Nasty Plot. What the heck? This is disappointing because I literally was sitting up eating breakfast. My mom was right there, and then she was like, what are you doing on the computer? And I was like, oh, I'm just playing a Pokemon battle. I'm about to lose. And then all of a sudden this happens, and I'm like, wow, like I would have just won if I went for the Nasty Plot. But like, Gypsy King choking is a very, very rare sight. You know, he's just such a great player that he very rarely makes the wrong play. You know, getting a 50-50 wrong is one thing. Like, in this game, you know, it's safe to say I outplayed him by a lot, but that's because he had room to get outplayed, and it didn't matter because he still had control of the game. So it may look like, oh wow, I outplayed him by so much, but in reality, he probably knew I could have made a lot of those aggressive plays, but was like, it just isn't worth it because I still have it. And as you can see, he pretty much still has the game. But he just decides to actually go for Protect here, which was, like I said, a big-time choke where I really could have capitalized had I went for the Nasty Plot. So, unfortunately, I did not, and now you're going to see this Hyperspace Hole does not knock out the Diancie. It turns out he's running like 176 HP, which is a lot, and it actually meant that the roll was in his favor to live, which I certainly was not expecting because... like, I don't know, I just didn't expect him to run that much HP. Maybe he's like really not running a lot of speed, just running like Timid and just creeping Crocodile or something like that. Or maybe he just took a little off of special attack to live a certain hit with 176 HP. But he really has a lot of HP on his Diancie, which really helps him take hits a lot better. And I was not expecting that because I just figured that outspeeding certain things would be clutch, and also potentially speed tying Archeops could be really, really nice because as you look at his team, he does not have a Rock Resist, and his only potential Scarfer was the Gothitelle. And with how bulky the Gothitelle was, I don't think that even a Scarf Goth could have outrun a Jolly Max Speed Archeops. So Jolly Max Speed Archeops really did kind of tear through this scene here. Had I weakened his team down a little, you know, a good amount. So that was kind of surprising to me to see how much HP he had on his Diancie there. So he lives that hit, which is crazy because it turns out he had Trick Room on this Diancie. Now, if he went for Trick Room right there, then he beats me 4-0. After all that outplaying, after catching him off guard in so many ways, the best we could have done would have been 4-0 against Gypsy. That just goes to show how good he is and how good his team is, and also how kind of bad our matchup is, because with how well we've played this whole game, like we literally have been playing, like most of my games, I'll sit there and say like I played that really well, and I don't go back and regret any of my plays for the most part. But this game, not only did we play it well, but we had to go out of our way to really make so many plays to even keep it close and wear his team down and stuff like that. So we really took a lot of risks here, but they were really calculated risks, and they pretty much all worked out. I just was on the mark with all of my plays, and the best we still could have done here was 4 or 0-4, which is just ridiculous. But because he made that choke, we're definitely going to be able to make it closer than that, which is nice, because even if I did go for the Nasty Plot there and he went for Trick Room, then he just outspeeds this, and he also outspeeds my Archeops and knocks me out with a Diamond Storm. So, crazy, but that's just kind of how it happened. He made this choke, and because of that, now we have a chance to potentially win if we flinch with the Hydreigon, but just mostly keep it close. As here he goes into Hydreigon. Now Dark Pulse should be a 2-hit KO from here. Can we get the flinch? Not that I necessarily want it, but just with the amount of times we've lost to hacks in the format, especially this season, having 2 of our wins, in my opinion, taken away due to the RNG, which has really hurt our record. Could we potentially get one lucky flinch as we go for the Dark Pulse, and we don't get the flinch. So he goes for the U-turn, and now he goes into Suicune as he takes that Stealth Rock damage. Now, it's crazy because, like I said before, Archeops with Head Smash is so strong that an Adamant Head Smash actually has a pretty good chance to knock out a Suicune from here, especially if he's not max Fizz Def. If he's got a lot of Fizz Def, then it's still a roll, but if he's max, then the roll is definitely in his favor to live. But if he's not max and he has some speed, then I actually have a decent chance to kill him. So I'm just going to go into Archeops here and hope that I can get a KO on this Suicune here with Head Smash. So that is what I'm going to go for, as he decides to sack his Hydreigon, make the safer play. My computer froze. Or my showdown froze. Okay, there we go. As he goes into Hydreigon because he wants to sack his Hydra and then go into Landorus and get the Intimidate. What's it called? He goes into Hydreigon so he can get the Intimidate with Landorus, and guaranteed put my Archeops out of range where I could knock out the Suicune with a Head Smash. So I do knock out the Hydreigon here, and now he does go into his Landorus. I can 2-KO the Landorus here with Head Smash, but if he does have a rock move, then he will knock me out here if he does hit. But as you can see here in the chat, Gypsy was just saying, like, I think I just threw, because he expected my Hoopa to maybe have something like Focus Blast. And I said, you almost did, but I didn't play for the choke. I just wanted to lower the differential, so now I'm kicking myself. But in hindsight, I don't really regret what I did, because I still think the chances of Gypsy choking are generally a lot lower than getting a Dark Pulse flinch. So then he said he had Trick Room Diancie, he had no reason to protect there. So he had, like, you know, what's it called? He had no reason to really protect there. Like I said, his only potential reasoning to protect was just seeing if I had something like Energy Ball that could knock him out, and then he could switch out into something like Landorus or Suicune, and then come back into his Hydreigon afterwards, and hope that I didn't have Focus Blast or that I missed Focus Blast, because that would be his best chance if, you know, he did protect and I had something like Energy Ball. So here I go for the Head Smash on the Landorus, because like I said, I could 2-KO him, but I am expecting him to just have U-turn, Fly, and Earthquake. He already showed the Supersonic Sky Strike, so we pretty much know his full set, except we haven't seen the Earthquake yet, but it is very likely that he's got Earthquake as his last move. As we go for the Head Smash, and that does 51.4 to a max HP Landorus after Intimidate. That is wild. This thing is so strong. And we just barely stay above Defeatist here. So here he's going to go for the Fly. Unfortunately, had that knocked him out, then after the rocks, Suicune would be potentially in range of getting knocked out by this Head Smash, even after the Intimidate. But because he's able to fly, like if he missed here, then we would be, even doing the 7% damage to him, we would still be out of range of Defeatist. So we would have a chance to knock out the Suicune, as it looks like my computer froze again. There we go. So he's going to go for the Fly, as I missed the Head Smash, and he does connect. So now we are in the Defeatist range, and now we thankfully are able to, we actually get a crit there. And I said please hit, even though the Head Smash went off first. I said please hit. I didn't mean for this with the Suicune. I meant against the Landorus, because I just wanted to knock it out, because that makes it an 0-1 loss instead of a 1-0. So what a wild game. Like, now he sends in his Suicune, which is out of range of Head Smash, obviously now, because I'm at -1 and in Defeatist range. So that was definitely his best series of plays to guarantee the win. Crazy game. Like, I know that had he gone for the Trick Room, he would have won 4-0, which seemed like a lot worse than it actually was. But if you guys go back and look at this game, I really just played so well and brought it to him at every single turn. Like, there wasn't a single play in this game where I just wasn't really keeping the pressure up and making the right play at the right time. So losing 4-0 would have been really, really upsetting and demoralizing. But like I said, there were two scenarios where I could have actually won the game had I had different sets, like HP Ice and the Whimsicott. I pretty much just won guaranteed if I had that. And then with the Hoopa, Obviously, you saw that he lived the hyperspace hole, which means he probably would have lived the focus blast if I hit him. But had he not been that set with all that HP, then that would have been a really good call on my part, as I would have had a chance to win if the focus blast crit, or if I got a higher roll in the focus blast, then I would have had a very good shot at winning the game. So just to show that we were able to be in the game that much, despite this like ridiculous matchup and Gypsy being as amazing as he is something that I'm definitely very proud of. This is one of the very best format games I've ever played. So an 0-1 loss to the King with this matchup is almost miraculous. But what even would be more miraculous is if we went for head smash here and crit the Suicune and actually won the game 0-0. That was, oh my gosh, like just thinking back at it, now realizing that we crit the Landorus too in that last turn, we just got 2 crits in a row. This is me that we're talking about. Now, I know a lot of you may be thinking, I'm always complaining about hacks, and now I literally just hacked someone to win. Obviously, the crit on Landorus didn't matter, but this one on the Suicune certainly did. What's it called? I am Adamant Archeops, so that crit, it's not like there was a roll crit. I actually looked it up, and even Max Fizdef Suicune was actually almost guaranteed knocked out by a crit head smash with Defeatist and a -1, because it doesn't factor in the -1, the crit, so it's just a Defeatist head smash. So he was definitely in range of that crit. So, like, I know what you guys are thinking. I always complain about hacks, but I want you to do me a favor. If that's what you think, go through my channel and look at all of the format games I've ever played and tell me when hacks was the contributing factor to me winning a game. Every time I've ever gotten lucky in a game, for the most part, it has not really influenced the outcome. Like, it'll just either speed it up a little bit, it just will be irrelevant. Like, for example, the crit on that Landorus, he was at 7%. That didn't matter. Or it will be things like me maybe hitting a lot of my moves instead of missing a bunch, which helped me either keep it close or win the game. Those have been the extent to my luck. It really has never been me having a game where hacks directly influenced the outcome of the match. The only time it almost did was earlier this season against Monotui. He had a Scyther that was about to sweep my team, and on the 4th Scald that I went for, I burned his Scyther and knocked him out, and that saved me from getting swept by it, but in my defense, it was the 4th Scald. You know, it was literally the 4th Scald that I went for. And yeah, like, not saying that I deserve to knock him out after 4 Scalds or whatever, or I deserve to get a burn after 4 Scalds, but Scald has 30% chance to burn. That means pretty much 1 in every 3 Scalds will burn, and that was my 4th one. So that is not like something crazy luck, and we actually did end up losing that game anyway, but it did really save us from just getting destroyed by that Scyther early on. So that was huge, as obviously, you know, that did help us, but like I said, it was 1 out of 4 Scalds, which is in my favor to get at least 1 burn out of that many Scalds. So you can go back and look through all of my games in the format, and if you could find ones where I've really gotten just game-changing hacks, then you can tell me in the comments and send it to me, because I'm just telling you that doesn't exist. Like, there have been times where I've gotten slightly lucky in games, but they've never really influenced the outcome of the matches. Usually I'll be in control and it will just help me win even more so, or they'll just be completely irrelevant crits, things that like just don't matter. It's just a slight chip damage here and there that just ends up not mattering later on, because maybe I'll hit someone with an attack that would have knocked it out anyway had I not gotten those crits, or had my opponent not missed. Whatever it is, I think I've been one of the most consistently unlucky people in the format when it comes to losing games because of pretty much directly the RNG. So winning this game because of hacks does not feel good. I offered the win to Gypsy immediately after the game because I'm so proud of how I did this game that that's what it's all about. It's all about playing well and being the best, in my opinion. Obviously the wins and the championships are nice, but if I could come this close and have chances of winning against someone like Gypsy, who is revered by many as the best player in the format, with a mean team and a really, really tough matchup, then, you know, I could sit there and look back and say I'm really proud of what I did this game. So I offered him the win because just having a 0-0 differential game, because it would still be 0-0 differential, would be fantastic for me, because yeah, I get another loss, but if I go 5-5, then that means I'll have, you know, a pretty good differential for a 5-5 team compared to some of the other people in my conference. So that would have been a really solid loss, a differential to have, you know, 0-0. So I offered him the win, and even if it wasn't 0-0, if they wanted to give him 0-1, whatever, not that much of a difference. So that would have been fine. But at the end of the day, he was gracious about it and said, you know, like, that's Pokemon. Like, I wish it didn't have to happen that way, but that is just kind of how it worked. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was one of the craziest format games I've ever witnessed. It seems like whenever me and Gypsy clash, you get some of the craziest format games, and I'll explain why. Like, we had 2 games in the CPC that weren't that great. Like, the one that I lost, we played early on in the season, and I lost, like, I just got hacked like crazy. And then the second time we played in the CPC, he didn't, like, we both kind of held back on our teams, and he didn't play his best. So it was still a good win for me, I think, you know, for me, but for him, he just didn't really play that well. So he didn't feel like it was a game where he really just did well, and he just got outplayed. So that was unfortunate. But in the NPL Season 5, we clashed in what was easily one of the most epic games in the format history, in my opinion, because NPL is known to be the most competitive league, and at that point in time was where I was really on the rise as a draft league player, because Season 4, you know, I did pretty well for a beginner, but I was still a beginner. This season, I was still somewhat new and inexperienced, but I was just putting in the extra effort, and I had a pretty solid team. So I was doing really well, and I was 8-0. Gypsy was 8-0, and we were playing Week 9. And some people were saying Gypsy was the best coach in the league. Some people were saying I was the best coach in the league, and it was really hyped because we were just good buddies, and we were both doing so well week in and week out. So we were hoping that we would both make it to being undefeated when we got to play each other, because no one at that point had even gone 8-0 in the NPL ever before. The longest anyone ever had an undefeated streak for in the NPL was 7-0 going into that point by Jolt. So that was hype because we both broke the record, and then we both clashed in that game. And we had a really hype game that pretty much just came down to there was one role that he was able to live earlier on in the game, which had he not lived that role, I think the rest of the game was definitely in my favor. Like, obviously it wasn't guaranteed, but he lived that role. And then later on in the game, I made a kind of a choke, just kind of a mistake, because I didn't consider a certain set that he had, and it just came to being such a close and epic match that was definitely, I think, worth being the clash of the undefeateds. You know, there really was like no hacks. You know, the roll was whatever. It's a roll. They happen. Other than that, there was like no hacks, and I hit all of my rock climbs and stuff, and my rock climbs and my will-o-wisps, I hit pretty much all of those. So that is kind of lucky at the end of the day, because it's not like I just went for 1 or 2. I went for like 5 at least. So really was not a hacksy battle, and that was just an epic game. As then finally, we played last year for NPL Season 6, and that is when I 6-0'd him, which I know isn't like an epic match of 2 great players because of the result, but I would say it's still one of the craziest games that you're going to see, because there was no hacks in the game, and I still was able to 6-0 someone as good as Gypsy King. So all of our clashes have just been wild. They've been crazy, and this one is no different. Like, he played really well outside of the choke going for Protect on Diancie, because, like, obviously, yeah, I outplayed him for many of the turns like I mentioned before, but I say that he played well because he was still in control of the game. Like, he made all those plays and still would have had a 4-0 victory had he gone for the Trick Room with Diancie. Like, that is why he played well the whole game, because he knew that based on the teams and what I could possibly have in the back, he didn't have to risk a lot of his Pokemon the way I expected him not to risk them. So even though I took advantage of the way he was playing and I technically outplayed him, it wasn't a situation where he really needed to try to outplay me back. And because he's so good, he knew that. If it was someone else, they might be thinking, oh, like, he's predicting me all over. Now I should make a prediction and make a play that could potentially, and it could potentially cost them getting caught, and all of a sudden giving me some more hope because they're kind of making a choke and slipping up. So that is why Gypsy played so well for the most part, but him making that choke at the end definitely was a big mistake on his part. Had he gone for the Trick Room there, he would have gotten the 4-0 victory. But like I said, it's just crazy to me that had I had the HP Ice on Whimsicott, that I literally won the game. Like Whimsicott keeps making me just barely lose to Gypsy because his Whimsicott lived a Hidden Power Poison in Season 5 that ended up leading to him winning the game. And this time I almost had Hidden Power Ice on my Whimsicott, that which pretty much would have guaranteed me the win because he wouldn't naturally think that his Hydreigon could live a move from Whimsicott. And even if he did, I know I outspeed it because he specs. I just U-turn out, and that puts him in range of the HP Ice. So that was crazy to know that HP Ice Whimsicott just won me the game. But, you know, it is what it is. I just have to play it out the way it was. And we made the right plays for the most part. Gypsy didn't make the right play with the protecting the Trick Room. And hey, like, everyone makes mistakes, but the fact that we did keep the pressure up so much really goes to show why he may have been in a position to choke. Because, you know, if he was just in a super comfortable position, he probably wouldn't have thought twice about going for the Trick Room, and he would have just gotten it up. But because we really kept up the pressure, we were able to not necessarily force the choke, but I'm sure that the pressure influenced him making the mistake. So that heavily worked out for us, and we did get the crit at the end with the Archeops, and we didn't miss any of our head smashes, which is something also kind of unusual for me, hitting all my moves. So yeah, that is just about everything I have to say about this match. It was awesome. It was a really, really enjoyable match. Kind of a shame that I won with the hacks, but that win is huge for me, guys, because now we are 3-4. I think we're still -7 differential because of the 0-0 ending. I don't think we get a 1-0 the way the NPL rule set works. So 0-0, and we, what's it called? Move on to 3-4, which is huge because, like I said, we made those pretty big transactions. We have now Z-Starmie, Mega Charizard X, and Xurkitree on our team, which makes our team a lot more threatening at the very least. You know, like even though our team still has holes and it's not very good defensively, we do have very big offensive threats, a lot more so than we had before. Like, Hoopa's a huge offensive threat, but on paper it just does not work as well as it looks. Or on practice. In practice, it does not work as well as it looks on paper, whereas Starmie's kind of the opposite. It works a little bit better in practice than it sometimes does on paper because it seems like it's kind of weak. But with Z moves, it is, you know, decently strong. And Charizard X, without a doubt, is overall a better Mega than Mega Blastoise. So that is cool. And having a potential Xurkitree combo, Scolitree combo rather, is very scary to my opponent's teams. So I definitely have a better feeling going into these last 3 games than I would have had we not made those transactions. But we still have 3 very tough opponents. We have Trev the King, we have Rizzypow, and we also have Aberforth. 3 very solid players. So if we could play well and build well against those guys, I think that we could get the wins. I haven't looked at the matchups that much, but you know, I think that if we could have won this game, then we could beat those guys with our new team. So hopefully we can win out our last 3 games, because if we do, we should be guaranteed for the playoffs. And if we win 2 out of 3, then we should still have a pretty good shot at the playoffs, and we definitely won't be getting relegated at 5-5. So that was good. This win was huge because of that. So yeah, that is about it. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please go check out Gypsy King. He's one of my absolute best friends online. And like I said, he's one of, if not the best players in the format. So if you're really interested in the format and getting better, then you need to go check him out if you've never heard of him already, which I'd be surprised of because you know, he's even more well-known in the format than I am, despite me having like a larger channel. He just has like way more active subs and everything like that. So definitely go check him out, as he uploads really good content where he explains his techniques and thought processes really well, and it'll help you get better. And go check out the rest of the NPL and the coaches and whatnot. This game was played before Summer Showdown took place, so if I'm not like mentioning anything about Summer Showdown, it's because it hasn't happened yet. But next week, I believe we play Trev, so we have to prepare for that. But we do have the new team, which, like I said, is all around more threatening than our last team. So that should be cool. Hopefully, we can enjoy this break week, because what happened was we had to play our Week 7 game the week before Summer Showdown, and then we'd have the whole week of, the whole following week to prepare for Summer Showdown, and then afterwards we'd get back to the season. So next week we will be getting back to prepping for Trev, and because of the position we are in, we are not going to just stop and let the ball drop right now. We're going to keep on rolling and hopefully pick up at least 2 more wins for the rest of the season. So thank you guys so much once again for all the support. Thank you for watching. I know this video was super long, but I think for those who really do enjoy the draft format and high-level things and in-depth commentary, I think that you will enjoy this. I think I did a pretty good job commentating, going through the team previews, the team building, and the actual match. But if it really is too long and you're just like, wow, Matt, you're dragging out way too much, you can let me know. I know some people definitely will think that because they just don't want to watch long videos, and I understand that. But if you're someone that does enjoy the format and pretty in-depth commentaries, and you still think this is too long, then please let me know, because I won't do it again. But whenever I do tend to go up against someone like Gypsy, I like to make a bit of a longer video, because I really want to teach and explain to the people that want to get better how you go about a game like this with an opponent like Gypsy. So with that being said, I will sign off now. Hope you all have yourselves a fantastic day. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye, mwah, and good night. Bang!